What's up, everybody? Welcome to another Monday night call. Super excited to be here today. My guest speaker is not on yet, but tonight we're going to be talking about the importance of mentorship, how to take shortcuts, how to accelerate time, and yeah, and then we're going to do some networking afterwards. We're going to do some Q&A, and then we'll do some networking. I think networking is probably one of the most important things that you can do on these calls. So if you put your contact info, you put your Instagram, something on your name, and if you have your camera on, it may help somebody connect with you while you're on this call, because words need not be spoken for connections to happen. All right. Oftentimes a smile takes you a long way in a relationship with somebody. If you're out and about and you see people on the street, smile at them, be approachable. That's the conversation. A lot of times when I'm out, people just see me and they're like, and they'll approach me and talk to me depending on what I'm doing. And they'll be like, you have a good aura, a good vibe about you. And it's because I'm always smiling. It's like it's stuck on my face most of the times. Like I'll just be standing around, just be smiling, because I'm really enjoying everything that's going on around me too. And I've built a great community and there's awesome people around me. I have good, my finances are good. So, how do you get yourself into that space too? And it's like, which one comes first? Do you smile first? Do you show up happy and show up approachable first? Or do you need to have these things first? And the answer, yeah, exactly. The answer is
smile
first. Yeah,
Absolutely.
Smile first. Be somebody approachable first. And it's no different than if you want to understand multifamily, if you want to build a business, it's about investing in yourself to be able to do it first. The skill sets, you need certain skill sets before you can go out and make things happen. Right? Like sales skills, marketing skills, underwriting deals, talking to brokers. Like everybody's got some sort of skill that you can start to leverage and play this game and be in the multifamily game. I was right before this call. One of the teams was like, I just want to know how to get started. How do you get started? Right? I just want to get started. I want to leave 9 to 5. I want to skip the 9 to 5 job. All right. So there's a lot of people in here that probably have 9 to 5 jobs. And they're like, how do I leave the 9 to 5 jobs? Teens these days are just trying to skip that whole thing. Now, are they smarter? Or is it because you have directly made an impact on the next generation? Whether you are in the 9 to 5 and you show yourself up as super miserable around it, right? That will teach the next generation, hey, this is not what I want to do. Or you're actively telling and talking about another possibility. Okay, so I'll introduce myself first. My name is Alex, and I've been doing real estate for about 16 years. Most people that know me know that I've been doing real estate for as long as they've known me. Since college, picking up Rich Dad, Poor Dad, as if you go into a conference room and you ask, the question to ask probably is, who hasn't read Rich Dad, Poor Dad? And you'll get maybe like 2 or 3 hands up in the air. And they'll be like, oh, maybe I should read Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Yes, that is a revolutionary book. That book had me make my first investment. $10,000 private coaching with the Rich Dad, Poor Dad coaching program. From there, it was to create a plan, exit the rat race. And I did. I created a plan, but I didn't have mentors or coaches to teach me after the plan was made. So it took me about 6 or 7 years after reading Rich Dad, Poor Dad and completing that course before I could buy my first property. And I bought a triplex in Newark, New Jersey. It was awesome. I thought I was financially free. I'm like, yep, bills are paid. The house pays for itself. Leaving the rat race is really having your rents paid and all your responsibilities paid, right? I mean, your passive income exceeds your expenses. You're out of the rat race. That's the game. If you play the cash flow game, that's the way out. First purchase on my real estate did that for me. And I didn't have a mentor. I didn't know what to do. What happens after? Nobody was telling me what to do after. There wasn't really much on YouTube. Grant Cardone wasn't really around on YouTube. People were not really around to teach that. So I leveraged my money and I opened the restaurant. Okay, I actually went and bought 2 restaurants on the college campus. 3 years into it, worked 16 hours per day. All right, I worked like all the time in there, and it was brutal. By the 3rd year, I was super behind on all my bills with the vendors. And I don't know if anybody here is even with me for that long, but it was a busy restaurant. Like, it was busy. At lunchtime, the tickets went across the entire sandwich unit, down to the ground, all the way across to the door. Tickets, like for people that are coming to eat, and the entire place is packed out like a fraternity house. We did like $1 million a year. And by the 3rd year, I was so far behind with my vendors because I didn't know what I was doing. Again, no mentors there. I had to fail. And this is what a lot of successful people had to do, is they had to go and figure it out and fail and go through this hardship. And then they come out on the other end successful. See, we see people, we're like, oh man, they're uber rich, uber successful, but the story is usually very similar behind. Okay. Either they failed, learned, and became stronger, and now they're teaching it, or they joined a mentorship, or they joined a mastermind. How many calls? I mean, I've been around a lot of really successful people lately, and a lot of their stories begin with, I paid $500 to go to some real estate club, real estate meetup or something. Then they had this upsell of $10,000 to join a mentorship or a mastermind. No idea what I was doing. I went there with 4 friends. I'm the only one that signed up. 20 years later, the 4 friends are still doing the same thing. And this dude is worth $700 million. There are moments in our lives where we get to say yes to something that will drastically change the trajectory of our lives. I don't know how many exactly there are, but I know with real estate markets, there's probably like 4. There's probably 4 that happens in your lifetime that if you took action, then you become a millionaire, or you make triple, quadruple your money. So the learning part of it is what's really important. And the other part, if you didn't hear in the story, is mentors. If I had a mentor in the restaurant business, it would have been a super successful restaurant. If I had a mentor in real estate, I would have bought that triplex 1 year instead of 7. Thanks, Brooke. And so this is the importance of mentors and coaches. I go out, Grant Cardone, Robert Martinez, all these big dudes, they're in rooms that we are not in. But they have mentorship programs, and they bring all that information to their mentorship program. I joined all of them last year. Last year, I was super focused on learning how to do multifamily real estate. A lot of people are like, how the hell did you go from 12 to 900 plus units? Almost 900 units in 1 year, right? And Brooke too. Yes, Brooke, thank you. The people that went to that conference with me, I went with 3 other people. They didn't take any action. And today, they're probably in the same place or even further back, more miserable than they were going into that conference, because they saw what was possible, and it took a whole year and they didn't do that. So I paid for all these mentorships for shortcuts, because I want to know the information they know. And so I bring all that information back here. So you guys being here tonight, and you guys in these types of rooms, there's a couple people running these calls throughout the week for free. Free. The invitation is that you don't sit in here like it's free, because it costs money. It costs Grant money to be in the rooms that he's in. It costs me money to be in the room with Grant. So being here, like, this is like you paid $80,000 to be here. If you did, you would pay attention to what's going on here way more than if it was free. And this is why sometimes I talk to the other guys that are running these calls, and we think that the limitation for a lot of people who comes around to these rooms for a whole year is that it's free. Like, if they paid, they now get committed and they'll actually get things done. They'll make it happen. That's what I did. That was the shortcut. So I think sometimes that's the limitation, because how much can you sit in these free rooms and kind of hear the same thing? Hear my similar intros for the first 15, 20 minutes while I wait for people to continue to join these rooms, get into this room, you know, and then other free rooms kind of doing the same thing. So I paid for that shortcut. And I still don't see my guest speaker on this call. I hope. One second. I don't know. No response. Oh, well. Matt Picheny, are you here?
He always runs late. Yeah, when I meet with him, he's always late too. I can text him too and blow up his phone for you.
No, it's cool. It's cool. He knows. He's known, and he's been asking to be on this call. So look, I joined the program and I was assigned a coach, right? And I think Cody's also in that same space, maybe assign the coach with Matt. And he's able to give me his success formula. It's not the same as Grant's. It's not the same as Rod Cleaves. It's not the same as Robert's, but he is closer to me and I have more access to him than to somebody like Grant Cardone. If I go and have a conversation with someone like Grant, he's in the billionaire status. What he's talking about with me, it doesn't even really land for me. Okay, some things do, because deals kind of, you know, what you learn in deals, there's a point where it makes sense for everything. But he's talking about buying deals from institutions. He's talking about class A deals that he doesn't care if it's cash flowing 2% or 3%. Now, when we're getting started, I'm not going after a $90 million, $120 million deal, because that would just be ridiculous. I would look so stupid talking to brokers and doing that. All right. So have a coach that is closer to helping you get there. I was talking to a group of guys, and you guys may know them. And they're working with me. You know, I'm talking to them. We're doing a little bit of coaching back and forth. They're like, I don't know what to offer our community. And they're great. They're really awesome. I love these guys, the Freedom Boys. Okay, so we're on calls, and we talk to each other a lot. And I'm like, okay, well, this is what's the next step. You can't be the ceiling to your community, right? And if you guys are stuck, and if you're constantly offering something for free, and you're going out there and paying a whole bunch of money, like, there's an energetic stuckness right there. So that is why, you know, we've been working and talking a lot about that. And these calls will remain free for sure. You know, these are opportunities to share, to network. I want you guys to be able to network with each other. I want to bring on great speakers that's going to make an impact in your life. I'm all about impact. If you hear nothing on this call, I hope there's one word, one phrase, one sentence from somebody that moves you just a little bit in the right direction. Oh, okay. Matt's here. Great. So, you know, I want to give our speaker plenty of time and also give you guys the opportunity to ask questions. And he's a coach from Rod Cleave's Warrior program that I'm a part of. And he has been supporting and helping me on my journey, right? This is the importance of having a coach and a mentor, is to shorten time. I believe there's probably 3 different ways in which you make good money in real estate, and you can make it in real estate. And none of those are fast. Anytime that you go for something fast, you want to try to make money in 1 year, try to quit your job in 1 year, what ends up happening is you get into trouble. And when enough people are doing that, and the institutions are offering products and mortgage and loans that support fast flipping houses, no down payments, type of things like that in 2007, 2008. Today's market, right? Bridge loans. Everybody's on all sorts of different bridge loans. Don't have to meet the DSCRs because they're trying to flip fast. They're trying to get their investors 100% returns in 3 years. And the investors are so used to seeing that they're almost pressuring other syndicators to say and do the same thing. And then you have products coming out from different types of lending that is supporting this thing. And of course, the market goes in that direction. I hope you guys get that, because there will be another time in your future when things are great, everybody's getting fat, everybody's just kind of sitting still, not pushing forward. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, here we go again. Everybody's trying to do this real quick, trying to flip properties, trying to do these things. And that's a signal for you to know that this is coming again. And then that's another time in your life that the market is doing its thing where you start to do something about it, and it can drastically change the trajectory of your life. We are in that space right now. This is the second market for me, probably 2 more in my lifetime. I took advantage in the first one by accident. Now here's the second one. For sure, I am taking advantage, and I've paid plenty of money to get myself in the right rooms, learn the right things, so that I can take advantage of what's happening here on a large scale too. And we're going to do it together, right? So without further ado, I want to bring my coach up and let's pick his brain. Let's talk, let's ask about his journey and how he got there. And, you know, he's big. He's a former actor. Maybe he still is. He's an author. He's got books. He plays the guitar, I think. There's one sitting in the back of his, in the back. So maybe he does. But I want to introduce my coach in the Warrior program, and I'm so honored that he's here spending this time with us, because he could be doing anything else as well. So Matt Picheny, can you unmute yourself?
Yeah.
Hey, let me put you on the big screen.
Ooh, big screen. Hey, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here, Alex. Thanks for hosting me this evening. I'm pleased as punch to be here.
So can you just share a little bit of yourself, who you are, and how did you end up being a coach in the Warrior program? Just your journey a little bit so that we can get this conversation started.
Sure. Well, if everybody think back as to where you were in early 2001. Now, in early 2001, I was in New York City, and I had a boutique digital marketing agency. I have been running that for 5 years, very successfully, but the .com bubble burst, boom. And my business was imploding. All of my clients were going out of business. People weren't spending any money on digital marketing efforts. And just at that exact perfect timing, I got a call from my landlord telling me I had 90 days to get out of the apartment that I was living in. So this was a rude awakening for me. And I wanted to stay in New York. I love New York, wanted to stay in New York City. But how do you stay in New York when you have no job, you have no income? One of my clients, Showtime, the cable television channel, they offered me a position to come in-house. So I went in-house to work there. And instead of renting an apartment, I actually bought something. I bought a co-op apartment. It was in Manhattan, but it was way, 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 way uptown in an area called Washington Heights. Not necessarily where I wanted to live, but it was a place that I could afford. And about 2 years, a little over 2 years later, I sold that apartment, and I saw my initial down payment more than quadruple in value. And that was a huge, huge eye opener for me. I was making a very good salary at that point in time, but in that one real estate transaction, I made more than an entire year's worth of salary. And so I was like, how do I make that happen again? So I started getting involved in real estate, and I did real estate as a hobby for 10 years. And something that I did on the side while working my corporate job in digital marketing. And I worked at a number of different ad agencies and kind of climbed the corporate ladder in New York City. And about 7 years ago, my wife got a really cool job opportunity that had us moving from New York down to Miami, Florida. And when we made that move, that's when I transitioned from doing real estate as a hobby to doing real estate full-time. And honestly, at first I was like, oh, I'm just going to fix and flip properties. But I didn't realize how hard it was going to be to scale a business that way. And that's when I first learned about real estate syndication. That's when I started syndicating deals. So at this point now, I'm a full-time real estate investor, have been for about 7 years now. I have over 10,000 apartment units that I've invested in. 2/3 of that portfolio are deals that I'm a passive investor in. I'm a limited partner in those deals, but I have almost 4,000 units as a general partner. Those are mainly focused in the Sun Belt and mainly in Texas. And that's the nutshell version of my journey. I wrote a whole book about it. If you want the details, there's 250 pages that you can read, but that's the Cliff Notes version for you.
Yeah. So tell us about your first syndication deal, or maybe even the first deal you invested in as an LP, because there might be some people that are looking for the first step into this game, right? Yeah.
So I had saved up some money. I'm a little bit older than I might look. Hey, let's do this. This will be fun. I've never done this before, especially with 79 people, but you've got a chat. Let's have everybody. And if you know me, so like Cody, don't answer because I saw Cody was on here at one point. But if you don't know how old I am, I'm just curious, what do you put in the chat? How old do you think I am? 25. I love you. Oh, all right. I guess I look older. I thought maybe I looked younger. I used to have a baby face. All right. So I turned 50 next month. But when I got in this game, I was already in my 40s. So, I wish I had known about this in my 20s or my 30s. Then, who knows, maybe I'd be a Grant Cardone. But that's not the case. I had already had a very good career in digital marketing and worked my way up to being a vice president at a digital agency. So I had some money that I had on the side, not a tremendous amount of money, but I did have a little kitty to play with. And I wanted to learn about investing in syndications. I knew that I wanted to sponsor a deal. It wasn't like, oh, I want to passively invest and then I decided I wanted to sponsor. I knew I wanted to sponsor. I had been doing real estate, like I said, for 10 years prior, working on all kinds of different projects. So I knew I wanted to get my hands dirty, but it actually took me 2 years to get my first deal as a sponsor. And we can go more into that in a second. But during that 2-year period, I invested passively into 5 different real estate syndications. These were deals that I saw that I liked and was able to put some money into them. The first deal that I did, I wrote a whole chapter in my book about it. And the chapter is called A Wrong Turn in Albuquerque because it was not a good deal. I invested in a not so good deal. But fortunately for me, the person that was one of the lead sponsors, my connection to this deal, and the person that I really had the faith and the trust in, he was very, very good. And he was not going to let this deal go down in flames like it should have. And we actually made it out of that deal. It was like a 3 years we were in the deal, I think right around 3 years. And I think the total return on the deal was right around 3%. So, if you factor in inflation or you factor in, the opportunity loss, because I could have put that money into something else, probably was not a good investment. But yeah, I put a certain amount in, I got a little bit more out. So, it wasn't the end of the world, but I learned a ton from that experience. And the most important takeaway from me from that experience was that there's really 3 things. I call them the 3 deal pillars. There's the deal itself. There is the market in which the deal is located. And then there's also the people running the deal, the sponsorship group. And they're all really important. Without any of those three, your deal can fail. But the most important one is that sponsorship group. Who is the person or people that are leading that syndication? So that was a very eye-opening experience for me to sit down. And if you've never done one of these before, or even if you have, you probably can remember back to the first time that you looked at a PPM and a company agreement, a subscription agreement. I'm one of those guys. I don't read a heck of a lot. I read, but I listen to audiobooks more than reading, because I just get drowsy when I'm reading. And I must have fallen asleep like 5 or 6 times going through all of those legal documents and trying to stay awake and understand kind of what was going on there. But it was a great experience overall. You know, you don't always have to make money to have a something be a you know, worth the money and getting a lot of education for it. I think Rod Khleif calls them seminars, right? When he's done things where he's put in money and lost money, but learned lessons from them.
Yeah. So, you know, I think it's super important for a lot of people to know that, like, being an investor, there's a lot to learn being an investor too. And sometimes I say this to a lot of people who are like, oh, I just want to come in and just be a general partner right away. Because being a general partner is still trading time for money. Like, it's still earned income. Don't get it confused, passive income versus earned income, because passive income is where you will become financially free, is where he invested into a deal and he doesn't have to do anything to make that money. You got to make money while you sleep. What was the quote that Warren Buffett said? If you don't learn to make money while you're sleeping, you'll be working for money for the rest of your life. Something along the lines of that, right? But that's the quadrant 3 that we actually talk about a lot in the mentorship program, which is, you know, how do you become free? And so to be an investor, to be a general partner, you actually have to, I believe you should know what it feels like to write a check to somebody, a big check, $50,000, $100,000 to somebody, because you're going to ask of that from somebody else. And so does that play into your comfort and when you became a general partner, Matt?
Yeah, I think it did. You know, for me, the investing in other people's deals was really sort of twofold. Number one, I wanted to invest. I wanted to, you know, grow that little bit of money that I had sitting on the side. The other thing was I wanted to learn how people were running their deals. You know, I also wanted to feel, what does it feel like to be an investor? What is it like to look at this subscription agreement and to sign a check for $50,000 or $100,000 to some people? And you know, what is the communication from those sponsors? You know, I invested in, it was 5 different deals, and I learned each of them were different. It was different sponsors, so each one of them approached things in a different way. Probably about 2 or 3 different attorneys had worked on those legal documents. So I actually got to see legal documents, not just from one perspective, but from a couple different perspectives, because although they all have a PPM and a subscription agreement, they can actually be set up quite differently. Then I also was able to see the communication that was being given, the monthly reports that were being given. And so through all of that, I was able to sort of pick and choose the things that I felt worked best for me and my business. And that's how I developed my own, you know, reporting template, which has grown and evolved over time. You know, I found an attorney that I liked, and then I ended up actually going with another SEC attorney after a few syndications with one. And I've got a one that I really like right now. And, you know, we've done a number of deals together, and we continue to work on deals together, and we have a nice shorthand. But figuring out how you want to put your business together and do it, you know, it's all good when it's in books or in videos or going to conferences. But when you're actually there and you're seeing the real McCoy and you're seeing it from a few different perspectives, I think can really open you up to to figure out what works best for you and your own personal approach and style.
Cool. So can you share with us your first sponsorship deal, the first one that you did?
Yeah, so I started off looking, so I was flipping some, so I was living in Miami, Florida, and I was flipping properties in Akron, Ohio, because that makes sense. The reason why I was doing it in Akron was I have relatives who live there, and the price point was a lot cheaper than Miami. And I was just starting a business, and I also knew, hey, I'm probably going to screw up here or there, and I'd rather screw up in a smaller field than in a bigger one. So when I decided to make the jump into multifamily, large scale multifamily, I started looking in the Cleveland, Akron area. I was unable to successfully find any opportunities there that seemed to make sense. A lot of the people that and again, I had no network. I didn't have a way to sort of plug in and meet with the players. I think if I were to choose to go back into there now, I think I might have better success because my network has expanded over the past 7 or 8 years. But at that time, all I was getting was like 20 or 30 unit properties. And there's nothing wrong with 20 or 30 unit properties if they're in your backyard. But if you're living in Miami, Florida, and you're trying to manage something in Akron, the economies of scale just aren't there. So I had looked in that area. And like I said, I was living in Miami at the time. So I also started looking in Florida, anywhere from Jacksonville all the way down to Tampa, St. Petersburg, Fort Myers. I didn't want to go down to South Florida where I was living because I looked at those properties and I thought the asking prices were comical. Did not make sense to me. I couldn't get anything to even come close to penciling out. Yeah. So I just was like, no, but Central Florida, I grew up there. My parents still live there. So I was like, I wanted to do that. But again, it was getting close on a couple deals, but not getting it. And at that time, we actually ended up moving to Boston for my wife's work. And I had a buddy who had moved to Kansas City. And I had a soft spot in my heart for Kansas City. As Alex mentioned, I used to be an actor. And one time in my mid-20s, I got a summer job in Kansas City at a really prestigious theater with a prestigious director, and a bunch of the leads in the shows had Broadway credits. And so it was a really good opportunity. But me being a naive 20-year-old who only really knew what things were like in Orlando and New York City, I thought I was going to be sitting around watching corn grow all summer. So I was excited about the shows, but I thought my social life was going to suck. But I was blown away by how metropolitan Kansas City was. And I had one of the best summers of my life there. I had so much fun. And so ever since then, I always had a soft spot in my heart for Kansas City, the city that I misjudged so like drastically. So a really good friend of mine, a guy was in my wedding party, my college roommate moved to Kansas City with his family for a job. And this was right around the time we were about to move to Boston. And I said, you know what, why don't I give Kansas City a look at? Worst case scenario, I'll get to hang out with my buddy Len. Best case, maybe I'll find a property. So I started reaching out to brokers and property managers there, which I always do before I go and make a market visit. And they were sending me some deals, and they kind of came close to penciling out. I mean, way better than anything I was looking at in Florida. So I was like, all right, let me go ahead and give this a shot. So I started going into Kansas City, visiting the market, meeting with brokers, meeting with property managers. And I did that for about a year until one time I was reviewing a property. This property I was going to put in an LOI on it. I had been underwriting it, and I met with the regional property manager. I found a property management group that I really liked and wanted to work with. And I was reviewing the deal with her. And, once again, the news she's given me was not good news. And the deal just didn't pencil out again. And I was like, oh no, another deal. And she says, Matt, I have a client who's going to put their property on the market And I think that it's exactly what you're looking for. Would you like me to put you in touch with the agent? And I said, yeah, definitely. Like, I would love to talk with the agent. It was a good thing because this agent, I've actually never seen her do. After my deal, she did one other deal. It was a new construction deal. And I've never seen another listing from her. And I know I'm on her email list. She doesn't do a lot of volume. She had this property. I underwrote the property. I put in an offer. I know they were expecting, you know, I didn't know at the time. I didn't know what it was, but I felt like my offer was going to come in too low. I was underwriting this thing. It's somewhere between 9 to 10 million. And so I came in at like 9, I think it was like around 9.2 or something like that. I have the actual numbers in my book. I don't remember them off the top of my head. It was like around 9.2 I offered. And I called the broker beforehand and I said, listen, I think I'm coming in too low. Like, I'm at 9.2. And she says, listen, just go ahead and submit whatever offer you think is going to be best. So I submitted the offer, 9.2. And she comes back to me. It takes about a week after I submit the LOI. And I'm like, waiting anxiously, like, what's going to happen? You know, do I make it to a best and final, or what's going to happen? She calls me back. I think it was like a little over. We might have been like a week and a half. And she says, Matt, thanks so much for submitting your offer. The sellers have decided to remove their property from the market. And I was like, wait, what? She says, yeah, you know, the offers came in, but they came in like much lower. They really were expecting offers at around $12 million. And everybody came in, you know, like right around where you did, like in the low 9s. And I was like, what? Like, what did I do wrong? And she's like, no, you did everything right. Don't worry. And I was just really, really upset. Once again, like, thought I was going to have this deal, underwrote it and put in the offer, and been talking with the broker and property management, got everything all lined up. And like this deal, like, I went to property insurance, got an insurance quote. I talked with a tax consultant, which actually taxes ended up being lower based on working with him. We realized they were going to be lower than I had originally thought, just by looking at the county, whatever that thing is that they have, the mill rate. That was actually off. And so I thought, oh, now I'm going to be able to offer more than other people because I know about this tax thing. There were so many things that I went through. And once again, I just was not getting this deal. And I wasn't going to accept no for an answer. So I got on the phone with the broker and talked with her about it and kept up communication with her and kept going back and forth with her, saying, hey, you know, at this point, this is 2018, right? This is like middle of 28 or early 2018. This is early 2018, probably like second quarter, maybe the end of first quarter. And interest rates are going up at this point, right? And so I'm coaching her. I'm just saying to her, I'm pleading my case to her. Hey, like, are you sure your client wants to, you know, risk not selling them? She's like, well, they're going to do a value add, you know, on their property. They're going to do the value add to like 5 of the units, you know, and then prove out the model and then sell it for a higher price. And I definitely didn't want them to do that because that's what I wanted to do. That was going to, you know, eliminate the money I was going to make. So I sat down and I underwrote the deal for them. And because she said they were going to do 5 units. So I'm like, okay. And I made this whole scenario of like, okay, they do 5 units, but it takes them 5 months between by the time they do it and they get it on the market and blah, blah, blah. And the Fed is saying they're going to raise the interest rates by a quarter, whatever it was. I don't know. I'm making it up. So then therefore cap rates are going to go up that certain amount. And then now you're going to have this new cap rate and now your value is going to be here and it's going to be the same amount of money for them, but they're going to have done all this work and they're putting all this risk, you know, blah, 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 back and forth, back and forth, back and forth for about 3 months. And then I signed a PSA for $9.9 million and I bought that property. So my underwriting actually had me allowing at that point to get to, I was topping out at 10. So I got like 100K under, and ended up taking that deal down. So it was off market. I mean, they had pulled it from the market. And that was my first deal. And then I found out that I had learned a lot from, and it wasn't Rod Khalif's mentorship group. But I was in a different mentorship. I don't even know if Rod had it. It was just starting his. I didn't know him at the time. But the mentorship group that I was in, which was great, taught me a lot about how to find a deal and underwrite a deal, but it didn't teach me anything about how to actually execute the deal, how to manage the deal, how to operate that deal. So that was like a whole other thing. Like, oh my gosh, now that I have this in contract, like, what is all this stuff? How do I look at a survey? And what is this easements? And, like all these different things that were going on with it, there's a problem with title, or, there's all these different things that I had to learn along the way to actually even get to the closing table and then to operate the property. Luckily, I had a lot of experience managing businesses, large scale businesses in my advertising world. I'm a PMP certified project management professional, right? So I know how to manage people, budgets, and timelines. I'm really good at that. And so that is essentially what you do as an asset manager. You're just doing it on the real estate stuff, which I had done as a hobby for 10 years. So I knew how to operate a property. It just was on a larger scale, but really, you're just throwing some zeros at the end. The difference between managing a 10 unit and managing a 100 unit is really not that different. It's a larger scale, but you also have a full-time property management team there, which really makes things, I think, a lot easier than managing a 10 unit property, especially if you're managing it remotely.
Yeah. There's so many golden nuggets, I think, from that, just the story right there. If you guys sat and listened to that story and just paid attention to, if you're looking for the nuggets, like I wrote, you will find them. So a couple things I want to just highlight what you said is I took no for an answer. I've heard so many amazing success stories in real estate because people were really persistent. And I have that experience also. We have a deal that we recently closed in Fort Pierce. We took no for an answer like 8 times for different things. And then also we're still taking no for answers about other things, like a Class A property management company won't take us on. And I'm like, we're not taking no for an answer. What do we need to do? Like, if you just speak to people and like, don't just take people's no for an answer. Like what's in the way of it? How do we get to a yes? There's so many amazing stories that comes from that persistence of it. So that's the first one. That's the first thing that, that was like a good nugget. I think everybody should take that. The second thing is that cap rate, that interest rate going up, cap rates go up, your property value goes down. I think this is something that everyone also needs to understand what's happening in today's market and why everybody's in trouble is because they thought they could get a variable rate and that they're going to put in work and then that they're going to increase the value of their property. And if the cap rates and interest rates stay the same, yeah, they would have made out great. But because interest rates went up, cap rates go up, and the work that they did, all the work that they did, it got canceled out. And they're actually in the negatives. A lot of people are bleeding. And I've shown it on our Thursday call, like the actual math of what it looks like when interest rates go up and how it affects your property when cap rates go up too. So that's the second part. What was the third thing? I just had it.
I don't know, but
he consulted with a tax consultant, which I thought was brilliant.
Yeah. Oh, also the like being in a mentorship group, like having people to help you along the way. Like for people that have invested with us and people that are in our group, we literally have a folder of all the deals that we do from the LOI, all the documents from LOI to all the due diligence stuff to the PSA that's in there, all the inspections, all the way across, our call, even the calls that we have with brokers and property management, like that's all going to be in folders too, so that you can like listen to those. I mean, imagine like this is why you pay for shortcuts. You learn things. You go into Rod Cleef's group, and I'm part of his program. I meet Matt. I'm assigned a coach, and it's Matt. And I sit in here, and Matt's like, "Oh, so you've done things. Tell me about yourself." Some of the stuff that you guys have heard me say in here about if you're going to a market, right? Like talk to the management company, talk to brokers, get to know the market. Like by doing that, that came from Matt. Like how valuable is that though? Like the entire tuition that I paid probably paid off by that. You know, if there was one thing that you're looking for, like what I told you guys in the beginning of the call, be in here like you paid $80,000 to be in here. Right. So somebody you're going to meet, some information you're going to hear that you don't even know that when you get into a deal, it's going to affect you that much. Every group that I've been a part of that I paid for, I'm like, I paid $25,000 for a club. Who am I meeting? What's the value of this person that I just met? You can't even put it on there, especially if we did deals together. Right. And then also that piece of information from Matt, we've been using that, like calling the broker, calling management company, calling brokers to understand markets. And Joe can attest to this. Joe's one of my proteges here. We literally are on calls all the time. So I'm going to just throw you on the spot, Joe. Of what you've learned in such a short time, right? Just by speaking to brokers. And now every single deal that people pitch on every like mastermind that I'm a part of, and Joe's also part of them too, because I just drag him into it. He's like, yep, I already know that deal. Every deal he already knows. It's freaking crazy. So Joe, how did you get there? And just real quick, share with us like how much you've talked to brokers and what you've learned in this short process. You compress time.
Yeah. So somebody actually called me today and asked me that question. Like, hey, I heard you're like doing really well at this, that, and the other with brokers and conversations. How do you do it? My answer is like super simple. I just followed the coaching. That was it. The coaching is here for you. It's on Mondays. It's on Thursdays. It's free. We joined the mastermind. Obviously, you know, there's a lot more information I got from there, but I followed Alex. Alex and Grant have brilliant coaching, and I literally just followed it. And there's a structure to how you know, there's a sequence in the deal. Like the deal has a sequence, and you know, the most important thing is the deal. With brokers, I always I remember they're human beings, just like you and I. They're just like you and I, and they want to get the deal done as well. So, you know, I talk to them just like I'm talking to, you know, my neighbor next door, but on a business level. You know, I prepare myself. I have like, you know, I have a list of questions that I keep right next to me on the phone, and he doesn't see them or she doesn't see them, but I can ask those questions and then I just zip it.
Because
And
there's definitely times where you just say too much.
Yeah.
They're gauging you, you know. So thank you, Joe, for that share.
Yeah,
And
you're
you know,
welcome.
like the coaching comes from Matt's coaching. Matt's coaching comes from another. Like we all learn through being in relationship with each other. Put yourself in the right place. Put yourself in the right rooms, like proximity. Like I'm so glad that I know Matt on this level. When we went to Rod's boardroom, I got to just hang out with Matt too. I never even met him in person until we were there.
Yeah.
You know, and I do feel like, you know, if I ever ran into trouble or anything, I have somebody to call. Like that, having somebody to call is so important. Like you got to identify your mentors, your coaches. You know, if I was like, yeah, I can call Grant, you know, like I've heard some of the advice that Grant's given to people. So I have a friend who was $500,000 hard in the deal. And Grant was like, just walk away from it. Like, dude, to us, I mean, to him, yeah, he gonna walk away from 500 grand and maybe he'll just go after it with his giant army of attorneys. But that's not what we can do, right? So like the advice might be different. But if I got the advice from Matt might give me something different, you know, because we're closer to the same level than me and Grant Cardone, right? So
I don't have my own personal jet.
You don't what?
I don't have my own personal jet.
Yet.
I don't know that I want one. There's maintenance. I don't know. I'm good. that's right, Alex. It's funny because the three things that you picked out are so I wrote that book, right, which tells my story, and I share 18 keystone concepts is what I call them that I learned along my journey. Those key points, and you just picked them. Like persistence is one of them, right? That, and I tell stories about persistence beyond real estate. Actually, some funny stories about me in the past with persistence. The other thing that you talked about, which is another one of the keystone concepts, is this is a little bit broader, but it's called cash flow is king. And the reason why is it talks about how as long as you have a property that is providing you cash flow, you're going to have resilience to be able to go through the ups and downs that you're going to have in the market. The problem that a lot of people are having right now, and hey, I'm guilty. I'm having a problem right now on one of my properties, right? Which is we have a rate cap that's expiring this summer. And it's potentially going to be very, very expensive because of where things have gone. Now, if the Fed starts to lighten up, the prices will come down on that rate cap. So I'm hoping they start pausing soon. We'll see. The Wednesday Fed meeting, it seemed like maybe that was coming up, but then the Friday jobs report was super strong. And now I'm like, oh, I don't know. We'll see. But we'll get through it. But the thing is, we need to get through it, right? We need to get over that hump. Luckily, we still have a good loan, and we've been underwriting for years very conservatively. And Alex and Cody know that, and I think Mark's on the call too. Mark knows that. Like my approach on this has been, hey, let's underwrite for cap rates to go back to normal levels, not these super compressed cap rates. So all of our deals that have any stress right now, it's only because of rate caps, or maybe the cash flow has gone down, but we're not in a point where we're going to lose our property or we're going to get foreclosed on, which is the most important thing. And that's what cash flow is king talks about, how you need that cash flow, that resilience to ride out those dips, because they're inevitable. Things are going to go up, then they're going to go down, and they're going to go up, then they're going to go down. Nobody knows when that's going to happen, and nobody knows how far up or down they're going to go. So you have to be prepared for that. And then the other one, what you're talking about, networking. There's one about networking, and there's also one about mentors. I think that it's don't be afraid of gurus is the name of the keystone concept. And, look, you don't have to join a mentorship program. You don't have to go to one of these programs. And you can still do it, and you can still be very, very successful. And there's a lot of people who've done it, but you're going to learn a lot of things the hard way, and it's going to take you much longer. The advantage to joining a mentorship group is that it can help collapse timeframes. Now, I'm not here saying, hey, join Alex's group. I know Alex. I like him. I think he's super smart. But I'm not here to pitch one thing or another. I'm just saying, in general, these types of things collapse timeframes. And when I wrote a check, huge check for me, never wrote a check that big before, except for a down payment on a piece of property to join the mentorship group that I joined. I was literally sweating bullets when I did it. I thought about it, and I said, you know what? If I'm going to buy a $5, $10, $20 million property, and I make one mistake, like doing this, joining this program, if it can save me one mistake, it will have paid for itself. And it has paid for itself time and time, again and again and again and again. But just to roll back into that first one, the keystone concept number 2, which is be persistent. It took me 2 years to get my first deal as a sponsor. 2 years. So
and how did the rest of the 4,000 come? So we got a couple more minutes before I want to take some questions, but you said it was 2018 when you got that first one, right? So now it's only 2023, and we did go through that time where you could have done anything in real estate and made money. But that besides the point, what was the biggest impact and shift that you had to move into the next level for you, going into the thousands of units as a sponsor?
You know, I think what really catapulted me in the to where I am today is a lot of hard work. Quite honestly, I worked my ass off on those properties, and the earlier properties I had people involved in, and I networked with people, and I met people, and people would say, hey, you know, Matt's really good at asset management or this or that. And just through connections and through you know, just a lot of networking and having a lot of properties perform well. And, you know, Alex, I mean, I would say I know a lot of people who did not do well in the past few years. I know people who did deals like the Albuquerque deal that I was talking about that only made 3% over 3 years, right? So I don't think that anybody could have been profitable in this market. Things are so aggressive. You know, I had to say no a lot. And I really had to manage those properties and manage those teams. And, you know, I invested as a passive investor in a lot of deals during that time, right? I'm in over 7,000 doors as a passive investor with a lot of different sponsorship groups. And there are ones that did crappy and I will never invest with them again, right? There are ones that knocked it out of the park, you know? So, yeah, I think that there's a lot of work that needs to be done. You really need to know how to manage a business, I think, to be successful. And if it's not you, someone on your team, you know, who's got, I think, some real business, real management experience to be able to do well with these properties.
So 4,000 units, how many deals is that?
12 syndications. But some of them are multiple properties. The largest thing that I have is a 1,300 unit portfolio.
Oh,
Yeah, 1,330 units across 4 properties in Houston. The smallest property is 2.
what did that so now I have a question. Before
400.
everybody starts asking questions, what did that property take? You know, how much was that property, and what did it take to take down something that size?
The portfolio was $117 million purchase price. We had to raise $28 million of equity.
Wow. Okay. So then in between that, you had a pref check, like a mezzanine debt.
Nope.
What was in the middle of that for 28 million? So it was just the loan was good. Good times. All right. So $28 million takes down 117 million. You can't do that today, but you know, great. Was that the biggest deal? Like, is that the biggest raise that you had to do?
That's the largest deal I've done. Yeah.
Nice. Okay. So we'll open it up for about 10 minutes for anybody that has questions for Matt. You know, I think this is a great opportunity. Just, you got to take this opportunity to pick the brains of somebody that's 4,000 units. So go ahead, Donna.
Hi. So you talked about good operators and not good operators. What can you tell us about knowing the difference between the two in advance in any way?
So I would recommend everyone go to my website and download for free right there on the homepage. There is a little PDF you can get on how to vet a syndication, which gives you questions to ask, a few questions to ask on both the sponsor, the deal, and the market, those 3 deal pillars that I talked about before. But you know, what's most important, Donna, I think, is who is this person and how do you know them? Right? If you got some random LinkedIn, you know, message from some guy who's got this great deal, I don't know. But if there's a woman that you've met through some other group that you're involved in, and, you know, let's say Alex maybe he's invested with her before, you know, then all of a sudden it makes that deal look a lot more appealing. So that's one of the questions is who's the person and how do you know them? I
What's the
also wanna
website?
know-
It's mattpicheny.com.
Oh, it's Picheny.com. Picheny.com.
Oh, there you go.
Sign up for the backstage briefing. I send it out every month. Go to the book page, listen to a free audio chapter of my book. There's a ton of free resources on there. I got like 24 articles that I've written about depreciation recapture, a whole bunch of like really dorky, nerdy stuff. So yeah, have fun there. But the other thing is this, you want to sponsor that as a track record, you know what I mean? That's one of the things that I'm also looking at. You know, there's a lot of people who come in, they're going to be great, but like, what have they really done? And have they gone through a market cycle? You know, do they know? Like Alex said, some people have had some good times the past few years. Like, have they gone through a rough time? And you know, for me, I never had gone through a rough time as a syndicator, but I sure had as a personal investor doing real estate stuff on the side as a hobby. Had been through a cycle, but not with other people's money. And that's the kind of thing I want to see. I also want to see that people have actually done a deal. You know, look, it's one thing to have deals that you've done, and maybe you're, you know, giving cash to your investors, but if you've only done 2 deals in the past year, let's say you started a year ago and you've done 2 deals and you just started doing distributions, that's really easy to do. You can just raise a little extra money than what you actually needed for your deal, and then all of a sudden you have distributions for the first couple distribution periods. That is not really impressive to me. What's impressive to me is to see someone who's got deals that have gone full cycle. They bought a deal, they operated a deal, they sold the deal, and then they actually made that profit. That's what I want to see. And so those are some of the things that I look for: track record and the sort of relationship, you know, someone who knows somebody who was involved in the deal.
Yeah, it
That's
makes a lot
awesome.
of sense. All right, Svelo, go ahead.
Hey, Matt, thank you on the phone call. Quick question. You're going to be investing with the legends, right?
Yeah, as soon as Alex sends me a deal I like.
All right. We're going to find you some good deals, Matt.
Awesome.
Thank you. Thank you for being here.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Nice question, Svelo. Iffy, is that how we say it? Iffy. Hi.
It's Iffy Essa.
Hey, Iffy.
Hi. Thank you for sharing, Matt. This is really interesting. My question is kind of on behalf of an upcoming someone who wants to be an upcoming professional LP that is just starting out and doesn't have, tons of funds. So you're telling them multifamily is the way to go, but they don't have a ton of liquidity to invest in all these deals. Would it be counterintuitive to encourage them to go into, smaller multifamily just to start generating some form of cash flow that they can then deploy into the larger deals?
Well,
Like, not a ton of people have hundreds of thousands of dollars just to, invest in this deal and that deal. So
sure.
yeah.
Sure, and just to be clear, I didn't have hundreds of thousands of dollars when I started either. I hear what you're saying, Ifia, and I agree with you that it can be difficult to start. I'll say a couple of things about that. First off, it's not a get rich quick thing, right? Like, for me, I started my business and I started investing full time, and it took about 4 years before I actually started seeing money coming in. Luckily, I had saved up some money. I had some other investments. My wife had a good job, but it took me many years before I was starting to make money. You're planting seeds, and those seeds need to grow. Okay. So I've heard someone say something like, it's not a get rich quick, but it's a get rich for sure, or something along those lines. Like, you can, but it does take time. Now, if you're talking about, what size scale do you want to get involved in, right? Because you're talking about, hey, what about smaller versus larger? I think it really depends on you, what your plan is, and how you want to go about doing it. When you look at the returns on a smaller property versus the returns on a larger property, I think from a percentage standpoint, like assuming you're, in the same market, I think you're going to see, and you have the same sort of business plan, right? I think you're going to see similar returns from a percentage perspective. So I don't know that you're going to be able to, on a smaller property, do better. The one thing is that if you're doing it all on your own, a smaller property all on your own, you will probably have larger return on investment because there's not a sponsorship group who's taking the fee. You have to realize the sponsorship group has a ton of experience and they're busting their butts on that, on phone calls and doing all that stuff, right? If you have the time and the experience with which to do all of that stuff, you can do all of that stuff. It's a lot more work. I think a lot of people who choose to go down the LP route, and I can talk to you about myself, for example, I have, hey, I sponsor deals. I'm a GP. Why would I have 2/3 of my portfolio as an LP? And I'll tell you, I have a wife and I have 2 children and I like spending time with them. And if I had to learn all these different markets and manage all those different deals, it would eat up all my time. Like Alex would say, the keystone concept number 1 from the book is don't trade your time for money. I don't want to trade my time for money. Now, I end up doing that a little bit because I need something to do during the day. And I actually genuinely love working on these projects and helping people develop passive income to allow them to get closer to financial freedom, right? But I think that, if you're like, I just want to be passive, go ahead and invest with people who know what they're doing, who've got a good track record, and save your time and focus and energy to generate more income that you can then invest passively till you get to the point where there's enough passive income generating enough income that you don't have to do that anymore. Especially people who are, doesn't really matter what your job is, but if you have a high paying job, if you're a doctor or a lawyer, why are you going to try to learn real estate from scratch? Like, go ahead, be a doctor, be a lawyer, put together, I have a thing in the chapter in my book, is what I did. It's called Charting a Course for Financial Freedom. And I figured out where I was, where I needed to be, and how I was going to get there. How was I going to bridge that gap? How many investments did I need to do and get what percentage of return to have enough income coming in passively where I didn't have to work, my wife didn't have to work. I mean, again, we're not flying around on a Lear jet or anything like that, but where we had enough where we can, be comfortable with our, regular lifestyle. I mean, I drive a Subaru. I'm not driving a Maserati. I probably could afford a Maserati, but I'd rather put that money into another cash flowing asset. You know what I mean? Like, what do I need a Maserati for? Also, I live in New York City, and a Maserati, if I parked it on the street, would probably get destroyed. So I'm not going to do that. But so I think if you're talking about doing it all on your own, you're going to put in a bunch of sweat equity. Yeah, the ROI could be higher. Buy a 6 unit, buy a 10 unit around the corner from your house. But if you want to focus on whatever it is that you do in your regular 9 to 5 and give the money to someone else, I think you're going to have a similar rate of return.
Thank you so much.
That was a great answer. So, and I'll share my experience on that too. I have a lot of single families that are running Airbnbs, things like that. And getting into multifamily, I actually feel like it's less work. It's actually more enjoyable because you get to do it with a team and you can count on people. And hey, I don't really like doing this. You do it, right? I know Ryan and Chris are general partners with me in some deals, and they're like my go-to people, right? They're learning. So cool. I did it. Here, you do it now. And it's cool to be able to delegate tasks and still seeing it. But if you had to do it on your own over and over, like, it's basically a job, and you're going to learn the hard way because you're doing it by yourself, and I don't even though my Airbnbs, like, they produce a freaking buttload of money, but I would trade them. I would trade them for multifamily. I don't necessarily have to do that right now. My wife's kind of playing with the Airbnbs, but if she wasn't there, I would trade them right away. because this is just a more enjoyable game and it's bigger. The returns are bigger, more people are involved. That's just my
first
personal.
deal, my first like investment property kind of happened sort of circumstance, but it ended up being a short-term rental. Okay. And it was never planned to be that. It was never underwritten as such. And this was before Airbnb was even really a thing. It existed, but it was only out in San Francisco. And I gotta tell you, man, that sucks. Managing that stuff is terrible, especially if it's not near you. I was 2 hours away from me and having to manage it. And I had a team in Connecticut taking care of stuff, but managing that team, making sure things got done. Oh man, that was a drag.
To manage one house, to manage one property.
Yeah.
I was living in Peru and managing properties in Vegas, and it sucked. Like every time I would get calls and stuff, and we did short-term rentals, all these properties are running, and even a 12-person team for 12 Airbnbs. Like that is crazy, right? And or you can have one person or two people managing a multifamily deal, and you don't get phone calls. Like the trade-off, like you do probably more work with your single family than you would on a 100-unit deal.
Right, because on the 100-unit deal, we're hiring a property management company, and we've got staff. We've got full-time staff there. You've got at least a full-time property manager and a full-time maintenance person. A lot of our properties are larger than 100 units, and we might have a staff of 10 or 15 people. And we also have a regional manager from the property management group. And so, yeah, they're dealing with the phone calls in the middle of the night, not us.
The other thing that I love about it, they do the bookkeeping.
Yeah.
That's the worst. I bet you half the people on this call have messed up and sloppy bookkeeping. Like that's when I got that straightened out, it changed my life. Because when bookkeeping is sloppy, it takes up a lot of energy in your head. And when I got a great CPA and then my management companies are doing the bookkeeping, I'm like, this is the best thing ever. Just have them talk to each other. Don't call me, give me my K1 or tell me what my tax responsibility is, which is nothing, right? So it's been an amazing journey in real estate for sure. And I think, Matt and I both had experience in real estate before. So if you are going into multifamily and you got a bigger learning curve, be patient with yourself, but also just hang around like these types of calls. If you don't have the money to be in a mastermind, like this is like valuable information for free. Like Matt just gave you like years of his life and experience, and he left clues right here for you. But if you're sitting here like, oh, Matt, Alex, you guys do me, tell me what to do, you're not going to get anything. But he's giving you nuggets in his book, in his website. All these things are cheap to be able to get you started. So let's move on to Svela. You already asked your question. What's your question, brother?
Really quick, Matt, you motivated me to get my butt to start doing, finding deals. So what are your top 3 cities that you like, Matt? Really quick question, maybe top 5, if you can share with us. And thank you.
Yeah, so this is what I tell everybody. Get a map, put it on your wall, put on a blindfold, throw 3 darts, and there you go.
You guys have also heard me, some people have heard me say something like that. Point anywhere on the map and there's a deal for you,
yeah.
That also was something that Matt said to me.
I don't, it is. I don't think that there are, that there's a reason why certain that this is the market you have to invest. Look, I have a lot of stuff in DFW, right? I'm invested passively in Arizona, right? A lot of deals in Phoenix and things like that. But I also have, I invested in a deal in Lawrence, Kansas. I have a deal in Temple, Texas. I'll be surprised if anybody here knows where Temple is. But different markets, it doesn't really matter. Obviously, you want to be in a place where everyone's not leaving, right? If you go and you look at the market and you start to do some research and you see, oh, okay, population growth has declined by 10% over the past 5 years. That's not a market you want to be in. right? As long as your market is steady, though, I think that you can find great opportunities. You know, that first deal that I did, that deal, you know, in Kansas City wasn't really in Kansas City. It was in Lawrence, Kansas, which is its own MSA. It's between. I didn't even know Lawrence existed. If you're into basketball, though, the Jayhawks, I think, won March Madness last year. They're like really into it. But it's between Kansas City and Topeka. It's like 45 minutes from Kansas City, 30 minutes from Topeka. Topeka is the capital of Kansas, which I also had forgotten. I know I had learned all the
I didn't
capitals
know that.
as a kid, but I forgot that one. Anyway, right there, you look at that market and the growth in that market for the past 100 years, I'm exaggerating, but you know, past 100 years have been like 1% growth, right? And then you look at the projections, and the projections for the next 100 years is like 1% growth, right? So not a big growth market. You're not going to go in there, buy a property and walk away making money. It's just not going to happen. But we found a property that was built in the 80s, hadn't been touched since the 80s, had a ton of deferred maintenance. The curb appeal was terrible. The sidewalks were literally reduced down to rubble. Okay. The interiors were horrid. And we went in there and we added value. The first thing we did was we poured sidewalks. We did a whole water conservation program. We did a lot on that property. And then we were able to raise the rents up from what had been, they were at the very, very bottom of the market, up just to the middle of the market, and increasing that NOI. There's like between $100 to $200 per month per unit, costs 132 units. We exited in a little over 2 years and did extremely well. Our investors were thrilled. Okay, but that was in not the world's greatest. I mean, I never would have, nobody told me Lawrence, Kansas is a great real estate market. But if you can find a market that's at least stable and you can find the right opportunity in that market, then you have a winner.
Yeah. Okay. Hawk. And then Adrian. Adrian, what's up? All right, go ahead, Hawk.
Hey, Matt, fellow warrior, also a legend. So let's do a deep dive, not a deep dive, but a quick deep dive on the first deal. You said 9.9 million. How much of your own money did you put into that deal to invest? Just curious.
I invested $100,000 into that deal, but at the beginning I had around 250 in it through the due diligence with, you know, having to put in earnest money and all the costs and everything. But then on closing day, I returned $150,000 to myself. So I had 100 in that deal because I needed that 150 to go on to do another one, hopefully.
Yeah.
Okay,
That's
cool.
So we don't have time to deep dive into that deal, but that's another way to, you know, accelerate too. When you're doing the due diligence, earnest money, and you have that money in there and you can pull it back out, you raise it back out and you do another deal. So, you know, that's another way, but it's more aggressive and you could lose your money. So that's why it's called risk capital. But I do have a video on my Instagram that says how do you turn $100,000 to $1 million in 1 year? And it's hypothetical, okay? But you know, the concept is there. So
but I always
Hawk.
keep money in my own deals. I think it's important as a sponsor to have some of your own skin in the game.
For sure, for sure.
Got it. Thanks, Matt.
Adrian, welcome, brother. All right, so somebody is here from my past, all the way from the college days. What's up?
Hey buddy, how's it going? Thanks for having me.
Good,
Matt,
man.
thanks for hopping on. Yeah, so just a quick question, man. A lot of value here today. Thanks so much again. Just curious though, just about like how you guys, like I know, you know, I had so many questions and honestly they've all been answered, but I think one I can ask is just about the property management, right? So obviously when you have, you know, 100 plus units, or 100 plus units in one property. Just curious how, if you guys are typically hiring out for property management, or are you starting them your own as another separate entity under one of your other management companies, or have you found that works better than hiring out? Or yeah, just kind of curious how, just in my thinking that would make sense to me, but you guys obviously would know better.
Yeah, Adrian, it's a very good question. We use third-party property management. At the beginning, it was sort of out of necessity, and I'll explain why in a second. But lately, we've just thought about it. We explore the idea of they call it vertical integration, right, and building our own property management team. And I decided that at
Too
least
much
at this
work.
point in time, and I what was that?
Too much work.
Yeah, that's right. And I may change my mind later, but yeah, I reserve the right to change my mind at a later point. But based on what we had, so we were thinking about it at the beginning of the year, okay? And I actually think I would be really good at building this out, because this is what I used to do at advertising agencies. I would build out property management teams. So project management, property management, they're synonymous. They really are. You're just applying the exact same skills just to a different product. But the thing for me was it's a low margin business, and unless you're in a place and you have enough scale, it doesn't make sense. And this goes back into the first thing. And when you're starting off, if you go and you buy 100-unit property and you need to redo your park, this is a true story. 116-unit property, second property I bought, needed the parking lot, had to be redone, like not sealed and striped, like they had to mill it down and like rebuild. Okay. And the guy went in and did a really crappy job. Okay. And here I am. This guy doesn't give two cents. He doesn't care what I think. He doesn't care. He did the job. He got paid. They did a crappy job, and he can tell me to go screw myself because I'm nobody. I'm a nobody. When is he going to get work for me again? If I get another property in the market, or when does this property need to get redone? 10 years from now, 20 years from now? Like, how often do you redo all the asphalt? Very seldom. So this guy could tell me to go pound sand. But when I have my property management company call him, my property management company that manages 50,000 units in the area, and says, hey, you better get back here and fix this property, or none of our clients are going to work with you ever again. All of a sudden, guess what? The guy shows up and he fixes it. So that's why it's an important thing. At the beginning of the year, we were looking at it. We had, around 3,000 units in our portfolio. But at the beginning of the year, it looked like we were going to be selling quite a bit more than actually we did. We did sell 2 properties and did quite well on them this year. But, with the interest rates changing, some of them we didn't sell. But it was like, hey, now if we start our own property management, but then we're selling properties, and then what are we going to do with those people? I'm kind of like, if you read my book, you'll get to understand I'm kind of like try to be a nice guy, which is maybe not good for business. I'm not really that cutthroat. And I feel bad about people like, oh, we're going to give people a job and then they're going to be out of work. So for me, it was like, hey, I don't know that we have the scale to be able to do this. I don't want to hold on to a property to keep my property management business going. That's not the right way to do it. I want to do what's right for my investors first and foremost. So I made the decision that it made more sense to let there be a great third-party property management company, let them deal with the headaches, and the HR issues and all of that stuff, pay them well, but have that as a separate thing, and let me focus on what I'm really good at, which is finding good deals and coming with a strategy to increase value.
And this goes also to people that are newer in the game that wants to manage their own properties too. Like, there's always a sense of like, oh yeah, if I just manage it, I'll make more money, right? But it'll take away from everything else that you do. And so we had an experience with this property that we bought from the mom and pop shop. We didn't have a management company in place, and we're doing things ourselves, and we're trying to, and we learn. We got consultants and we got all these things. We're about to put all these systems in place, and we interview a management company. They were already going to do all of it. Like, there was just, it's still all about compressing time. Why would we go and do all of that when these management companies that have 50,000 units already know the system and probably have better systems than you, and they'll run it? Like, are you going to run the property yourself forever? Right. So like, it's a lesson learned, obviously. And, we always definitely will go to a third party management. So yeah,
Awesome.
For now.
Definitely.
And I also reserve the right to change my mind later. But okay. That's it for the for Matt's portion. And thank you, Matt. Thank you so much for being here. So appreciate all that you've done for me. And all your information will be sent out in an email. So the next 2 days, be on the lookout for the follow-up email that's got all of Matt's information. Go onto his website sooner than later. Get the information there. It's free. It's free. It may change your life. Okay. Especially if you're trying to get into a deal or invest in the deal right now. It could make or break you. It could make you a lot of money or lose you a lot of money by not doing it. So thank you, Matt, for being here. Appreciate you, man.
Thank you. Well, I think 1 or 2 people tried to direct message me in the chat, and there's like 1,000 chat things here. So if I didn't respond to you, don't take it personally. Shoot me an email, find me on LinkedIn, go to my website. I'm happy to chat with you. Don't take it personally. There's like 1,000 chats.
Yeah. So what we're gonna do now, thank you, Matt. I'm
Thank
gonna
you.
give you guys a sneak peek of something that we're building for the entire community. Okay, so this is gonna be super cool. And then also we're gonna do a breakout room. So don't leave. If you're like, I don't want to meet people or talk to people, get uncomfortable because there's somebody here that you're gonna meet that could change your life. All right, so I'm gonna do a quick sneak peek real quick of what we got built out for our community. This is a gamer platform called Discord. And within it, remember how I always said I wanted that 24-hour networking, like where we can just network all the time. And so we built something out where people can come in. There's general chats, it's kind of like a WhatsApp. There's a stage that's like Clubhouse. And then there's, announcements, stuff that will be posted. The common grounds is where everybody that's going to come in and hang out. There's video channels that you can chat with each other, break out into rooms, talk about deals, things like that. We have our own mastermind section, which we do our own things in, but we will also get to communicate. This is the part where, today I just hopped on, like random times throughout the day. I'm just hopping on and I go on the stage, and then all of a sudden people hop in and we just chat. We talk about deals. Sometimes there's like, we also play Risk together sometimes. There's a lot of fun things we do in this room. It's really to strengthen the community here. So this is coming. Just wanted to give you guys a sneak peek of what is being created in the space right now. Yeah, we'll play some League together, and let me get everybody back onto the screen. How do I view myself? Gallery. Okay, so I want to see everybody's face too. That's a space that's going to be provided. And Nick, do we have a form for people to kind of like register so we can give them a way to join it? So it'll be ready maybe in like, 2 days or so. But this is going to be a big community. We're going to be bringing in probably other communities as well in there. So it's going to be a hub for networking. And we want to create something where 24 hours a day, you don't have to wait till next Monday or next Thursday or to the next call to ask your question. There are plenty of people in there that have knowledge, that are a little bit ahead of you, and that can answer these questions. So Nick put in the access sign up right there. So if you want to get involved and join it, just put in your information in that lead connector thing. And yeah, in a couple days, you guys will receive instructions on how to join it when it's all set up and ready to go. Yeah, it's going to be a blast in there. I know just within our community, we've been beta testing it. Like the connections that we've built with each other in there, it's on a whole nother level. So I don't really know any other multifamily groups doing something in that platform, but let's begin the movement, right? And let's create a space for everybody to connect and bring more communities to the same place. So Nick's got the link up there. All right, and then and what happens a lot too for our group is after these calls, we do an after party on the Discord. Everybody goes in there, gets all jacked up and talk about, just stuff about deals. I mean, deals get talked about in there nonstop. Joe is in there every morning like, hey, I got another deal. Hey, I got another deal. Hey, I got another deal. And we're calling brokers together. You know, there's a lot of things happening in there. So definitely give it a shot. You know, it's not just for gamers. I used it for gaming for a long time. And I really love to gamify stuff. So in there, as you do things, you'll get badges. Maybe you'll get your own little avatars, things like that. That's in there. I don't know, just for fun. We gamify things, right? So yeah, that's coming. And Thursday night we do an underwriting call. And underwriting call is where we go through everything from looking at a property to getting it under contract. Okay, it's not an operations call. We have a call on Saturdays for all our investors about how we're operating all the deals. But Thursday is the next step, right? It's the next step. How do you underwrite deals? How do you look at markets, and how do you speak to brokers? What's the due diligence period look like? And we kind of just go through a lot of different things. I also bring speakers on there. Vina Jetty is going to be joining us soon. She almost has $1 billion. I think she might have hit $1 billion this year, but she's going to be joining us. And, you know, I'm going out there creating a lot of connections. I'm bringing it back to you guys, and, you know, just plug in and get engaged with people in the community. So what we're going to do now is we're going to have you guys all just break out into random rooms, meet each other. You'll have 12 minutes to chat with others. And we'll do 2 of those, and then we will call it a night. So Nick's going to send you guys off. All right. Turn your cameras on, chat with each other. What's your goals for this year? You know, what are your challenges? What do you do? What city, state you in? I don't know. Network.
The rooms are open.
The rooms are open.
And goodbye, replay.